checking out some of your talks and things like on
Oh,
your website. It was super cool. I mean, I really love what you're doing, and it's wonderful. So
thank you.
yeah, it was
I've
really
just actually
cool.
been asked to do a talk about there's an exhibition at one of the universities in Canada that's to do with it's a numismatist exhibition, but sort of lightly to do with Islamic finance. So I've just been asked
Wow.
to do a talk there about Bitcoin and Islamic finance. And I actually studied Islamic finance when I was working in financial markets.
Wow.
So yes, I'm quite excited actually to prepare that because it's a topic that I kind of wanted to delve into a bit more. So yeah, looking forward to that. It'll be good.
That's great. Yeah, they're doing like Bitcoin Mania, I think in a week or
They
two.
are, yes, they are. So I think that's the first one. So I think the Bitcoin conferences, they did one in Asia. They
Mhm.
obviously had this year's in Nashville, and then they're doing the MENA one, and then next year they're going to be in Las Vegas for the American one, which I've booked my hotel already actually, so I'm quite looking forward to
Oh,
that.
you guys are so good. I know I'll be there. I just haven't booked. I'm hoping to get into the gallery.
Well, I'm
We'll
thinking, oh
see.
yeah, that would be really cool, actually. Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, we should really kick off actually with you just introducing who you are. Hey.
Yeah, I guess we should just actually start recording this. Um, anyway, yeah, lovely to meet you. And yeah, well, I guess we could just get into it because yeah, women in finance and all of that. Yeah.
So, do you want to just say who you are and I guess a little brief bit about your background? I mean, I'm quite interested to delve into it because you've done a hell of a lot. So,
Yeah, I have. Well, okay, so hi, well, my birth name is Naomi Olson. I am known as the artist. C is medicine. And I also just am launching a beachwear brand called BTC Aloha, BTC, like SEA. Um, so
nice.
yeah, that's exciting. Um, and about me, I've always been an artist. I've always been, you know, just an explorer and an adventurer of life and wanting to learn and wanting to grow and to create. I think um growing up it was a I kind of had a challenging childhood. So for me, like the power to create your own world and the power like art for me was such a part of my life because it allowed me to create the world that I wanted to live in or the
Mm.
or it made sense. It gave me something that made sense of what was confusing in life.
Wow. So, kind of art is healing.
Oh yeah, right. I think I art for sure. I think is one of the things that saved me for sure. There's been a few moments in my life where it could have forked this way or that way, and luckily I forked into a more like a better situation.
So, could you talk a little bit about I guess how you just well, there's some connection with Bitcoin here, obviously, but talk about
Yeah.
then how you first got into art, and then maybe we can get into your Bitcoin journey after.
Oh yeah. The um. I think art. I think creativity, creation is essential and innate to being a human. We're creative beings. I mean, nature is creative. So I think that it was something just, it's something innate, something that I knew. And it was to be the creativity, the art, the making, the process was something that kept me sane. It kept me connected to who I truly am and connected me to others. And it was a way of, I guess, communicating. And yeah, so I think that that was
And what
how
kind
I.
of art did you start off doing? Was this as a child? Were you sort of painting, drawing,
Oh yeah,
making
I was
things?
always drawing and painting
Right.
and making things. I used to like design clothes. I used to I a collage is actually something that I've always done. I love the idea of being able to make something out of just rubbish, right? Just like, like whatever's lying around. I love that you can actually create something beautiful out of it or turn it around into something that says something or that inspires somebody. So that, um, yeah, I've always been doing collage.
That's funny actually, because I remember a few years ago when I was still at in the corporate world, we were trying to do a session for people with collage, and we
Oh yeah,
realized that nobody has like paper magazines anymore, and so it's it's almost impossible to do that with an actual like cut and paste with glue because hardly anyone has anything that they can bring in and kind of cut and paste. Yeah, and so it was quite funny. And I was thinking about that because sometimes I've done sort of mood boards and things over the years, like for interior design stuff, for example, I always do a mood board
yeah,
like this is what this room should look like. Here are things I like this is the general theme. Um, and I always do them on things like Canva. So I just pull drawings in from magazines or
right.
from websites or things like that. But yeah, this whole concept of doing like a paper collage is that unless it's objects that you're putting in, but it's become quite difficult.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I grew up where they were still printing, and there were a lot of magazines. So, um, yeah, it's different. However, like I'll just go and print things out. Like I actually had to print out Bitcoin symbols
Oh,
so that I
really?
could
What
use
to
them
do
in my
them?
collage. Yeah, I mean, I would just get grab
Yeah,
the digital sign and then create a page and then print it out. So I have all these different in my paper pile. I have all these different like sizes of the Bitcoin symbol so that I can use it in my
nice.
in my collage.
So tell me, how did you discover Bitcoin then? So you've always been an artist, and your bio said that you'd been doing it for about 30 years, which is a heck of a long time to be, specialized in a subject. But when did you discover Bitcoin?
Uh, about 4 years ago, I actually had heard about it probably 7 years ago when I was living in New York. However, I didn't really get into it until like there was a major shift in my life, and then 2020, right, the year of transformation for all of us. Um, I had a time. I was actually healing. I was basically given a whole new chance to live again. So I was healing and um, getting back into my art, and I had all this time. So I started like I remembered Bitcoin, I remembered things, and then I was watching some other, um, like what was I watching? That I don't know, like I think I saw the Vigilante and the London Real. It's people were talking about Bitcoin. And so then I started going down the rabbit hole, reading the white paper and trying to figure it out.
What were
And
you healing from? Can I ask? Was it a physical disability? Was it a like mental health problem? Like, what was the process of the healing that then got you to this kind of stage of looking into things again?
oh yeah, I had this. I dealt with ulcerative colitis for a couple of years,
Oh, okay.
and I was in and out of the hospital, and I
Oh,
basically
wow.
had turned into a skeleton. And I was trying to go at it from so many different ways, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. Healing journeys are never black and white. There's so many gray areas and layers. And I think, well, I mean, I also see like I've done a lot of healing work too. I've always been interested in just healing myself and learning that. So I've, been a craniosacral therapist, a massage therapist, and other things, um, as sort of my own healing journey. And this was obviously like the biggest cry for change in my life, right? It was like I was either going to make it through and have a whole new opportunity, or I was just going to wither away.
Well,
Um,
so that became a turning point for you when you got that sick.
oh yeah, it
Mm.
was huge. It was really hard. I mean, yeah, I don't, I don't know if we don't need to get into details, but it was super challenging for a couple years. And I always lived sort of this. I didn't really have any financial education, and the education that I had was ridiculous. And uh, I mean, there's so many layers to like money and how we use it, and then like the conditioning and how my parents used it, how my parents ancestors, I mean, it goes pretty deep, and I really did not know anything about it. And I just
So
um
when you were recovering, you sort of had some time to go and study it and started looking into it. And then
yeah.
what was it that hooked you then? Like why after all this time, what was it that kind of captured you at that point when you started revisiting Bitcoin?
Well, when I started looking into it, I realized like, oh wow, this is actually a tool that can benefit humanity, like peer to peer. I mean, I always was sort of anti-system. Like I as an artist, I grew up just like I just knew that none of this stuff really made sense. It's like, oh, here, you get this whole idea of, like degree, and you get your job and you have your car, your house, and all this stuff. It just didn't really, I don't know. I was like, there's got to be something more or something better, because it just doesn't seem like this is that great. You know what I mean? Like the dream. I mean, the American dream, quote unquote. I mean,
Yeah.
it
Well, so
was
you
just kind of
generally
like,
felt that there was something off with the system and Bitcoin seemed like a solution to it. So why did you go so deep into it then? Like, I mean, did you just did that sort of transmute into your artwork? Did you just feel that this is an incredible thing and I want to represent it in artwork? Or what was the connection that you saw between those two fields?
well, so as I was like healing, going down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin and getting into it, I was actually making art, and I was starting to move it onto the blockchain.
Oh,
I didn't
interesting.
I didn't realize that you could do art on Bitcoin till a while later. Although I mean, I finally did figure out like you could do Counterparty and XCP. However, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And then I had met all these people who were doing NFTs
Oh,
on
okay.
Ethereum and Tezos and things like that. So I just was like, oh, naturally started doing that. And I was very much into making my surf collage and sort of ocean inspired art, because like that's how I healed. I would go to the beach every day and just I was photographing again. I
Mm,
was collaging again, right? I was like, I knew that this was my chance to have the life that I dreamed of, and to take steps towards that every day. Otherwise, like, what's the point? Because I had
mm,
kissed death, and this was an opportunity. And I think Bitcoin, of course, was part of that, like seeing that opportunity to change the whole financial system, the whole system as I knew it. Like I recognized that. And so I wanted to explore that. And so then as I was doing my collage and everything, I realized like this is really about freedom. It's about connection. And, it can be something for humanity,
mm.
um, and inspiration, and change the way that we transact and interact. And so I realized I was actually making Bitcoin art. and and like through my art, through my ocean art, through my surf art, it was actually Bitcoin art. And so then when I merged the two, it was just perfect.
Wow. Do you surf as well?
Yeah.
You do. Oh, amazing. And so you're living in New York when this whole thing kicks off. And then what happened then? Because your bio said that you'd spent time in Mexico. So is that kind of home now and where you base yourself and sort of do your
Yeah.
art?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'm based in Mexico now. I spent a long time in Hawaii, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, actually, I did a lot of photography in Hawaii. I was in Hawaii um, for a long time, and I kind of went there to surf. I went there to because I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Wisconsin, actually, and I always dreamed, right, of living by the sea. I mean, I didn't even see the ocean until I was 13.
Really?
Yeah.
That's incredible. Huh.
However, when I saw it, I was like, this is life. It exists. I'm gonna figure it out. And so I did.
That's incredible. So when you're recovering, you spent some time in Hawaii, and then why Mexico? What was the appeal of
Well,
Mexico?
actually, no, I lived in Hawaii before I recovered for like 12 years, and then I left. I did the whole like New York, a little bit of France. I did like I just wanted to change and get out of the islands and have a different experience. And that's when I don't know, I went back to Hawaii because I realized like it wasn't for me.
Mm.
I really longed for that beach life that I had had. And so I went back to Hawaii, and then that's when I got sick. And then I moved to Florida and was there and that's where I was like in and out of the
Recovering.
hospital, and finally started like walking the beach and healing. And then once I was strong enough, I came to Mexico because it's part of really like living to my values, which I think also Bitcoin is part of. How do I say it? Like that. I think it's always sort of forcing me to really look at my values and what I value and where I want to put my time, where I want to put my energy, what's important to me. And so I made the move because during that time, the world was pretty shut down. And I wanted to be by the ocean, by the wild sea, near nature. I wanted to hear kids playing in the streets. I wanted some dirt. I wanted mud. I wanted small businesses. I wanted community. And I found a place, where, there's still an element of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So Mexico is now home and you're busy creating Bitcoin art there. So you mentioned that you started your own fashion line. I'm kind of curious about this because I have another friend as well that does Bitcoin clothing. And one
Yeah.
of the things that I always run up against with this is like I've got some lovely t-shirts that are kind of Bitcoin based and hats and things like that that I wear sometimes to conferences and that kind of thing. But I do wonder about the OPSEC of it, like the sort of, security aspect of kind of blasting out there that you might be a Bitcoiner. Did you have any thoughts about that before you started creating the fashion brand, or does that ever cross your mind?
Yeah, it does. And actually, I mean, well, I'm wearing something now, but it's like you can't really see unless you get really close to me.
Right,
And then I have this other design too. Like, in the designs that I'm working on are kind of like insider. I have a hodl wave, but you see that you don't really know what it is unless you're a
right.
Bitcoiner. And somebody might ask you, well, what is hodl or hodl? What is HODL? Like somebody might ask you, but nobody would really know that that's a Bitcoiner shirt. So I'm actually trying to do designs that are a little more subtle.
Mm. Oh, okay, that
Like you,
makes
you
sense.
can't quite tell right away. Like even the Bitcoin surfers, like this is a Bitcoin surfer print. When you get up close to it, you can see the little Bitcoin, but far away, you wouldn't know. You just think
Right.
like, oh, that's kind of a cool print.
Nice. Can you talk about the process then? Like, what's the process of actually producing a fashion line? Like, how do you start and how do you go into production?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I'm figuring it out. um, I don't know. I mean, I always just go do things, which I don't know if it's like the best because really you should get a really good plan together and then go and find a partner or funding and then go to it. I always kind of go the backwards way and just like go for things and make things and try it out. Um, but I mean, I am
So
working at.
how do you create the designs? Like, how do you start that process?
Well, I mean, these days it's really easy because there's so many dropship companies. So really anybody can set up a.
Right, but that's for production. But when you're actually creating the designs to begin with, like, what's the process for doing that?
Well, it came out of my collage, like it came out of my art.
Hmm.
This is really a bit about making wearable art, I guess, is what's when I said, because I started doing this, and I actually work with a woman here, a friend of mine in Mexico, who's a designer, and she makes clothes here. And I was like, oh, I would love to have that, but with this print, like I could do my Bitcoin surfers and put it on clothes, like,
Ah,
and also I get really sick of the sweatshirts and hoodies and t-shirts, you know what I mean? It's just like nothing wrong with that. It's very practical. People love it. It's great. I just, I don't want to wear that all the time. And I want to see guys in like cool Aloha shirts and like nice shirts and have a collar every once in a while, or so so I was like, let's make it. And plus, I mean, as Bitcoin starts to progress, as hyper Bitcoinization happens, right? Look, there's art, there's culture, it's growing, like fashion, it's about to just be an avalanche, right? Like it's gonna just explode, and everybody's gonna want Bitcoin clothes, right? I mean, it's gonna happen. It's already starting. There is quite a few little fashion brands, and probably all of the bigger brands are starting to think about what can we do that's going to be, speak to the Bitcoiners or crypto communities
yeah.
as it keeps growing and as
And
it
are
becomes
you
popular.
doing men and women's clothing and like is it unisex? Is it men and women's? Are you focusing more on women's? Like what's the kind of overarching look and feel of the brand, I guess?
Yeah, well, I actually visualize a lifestyle brand for like the whole family, like specifically beachwear,
Okay, so the
right?
focus is really on beachwear.
So
Yeah, makes
for
sense.
me, it's all the yeah. For me, it's the focus. It's a lifestyle. I mean, I'd love to eventually have maybe like Bitcoin getaways in El Salvador or something where you get a towel and it's part of like a whole lifestyle, and maybe even connecting with certain resorts. Like Bitcoiner resorts or Bitcoin stays eventually. But for me, I really want it to be like a family brand. I think the whole like children aspect is really important, and in fact, like that's one of my goals, is to be able to eventually give back to education,
Mm.
specifically Bitcoin education, so that children have the opportunity to build their dreams. It's something that's taken me so long to figure out, and I've had to go, I've had to like basically disappear and come back. So I'd really like that to eventually be able to give back to that.
That's amazing. Wow. How many items do you have in your line at the moment?
I have just a handful. I have a handful of shirts. I have a few dresses. I'm sort of just testing the market. Um, I have a lot of ideas that just haven't had the chance to get out yet. Um, However, my vision is that it's like the Bitcoin beachwear lifestyle brand, right? Because there's already other really cool Bitcoin fashion too that's happening. Um, and there's enough space for us to sort of have our niche. And beachwear, of course, is definitely my niche.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of if you're a surfer then, like are you kind of focused on things that can actually be worn surfing, like say wetsuits or things like that, or is it primarily your focus on things that you're wearing at the beach? So like you said, like a dress or a bikini or that kind of thing. Like what kind of items are you doing?
Yeah, right now I'm just starting sort of with simple dresses and aloha shirts for men, shorts. I do have some bikinis and swimsuits that I will probably be doing, and I would like to branch out into um, surf wear, like wetsuits and things like that.
Surfboards would be cool, actually. That would be
Oh yeah,
awesome.
I've already thought about it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Well,
that's
you
what
have
I
a lot
mean.
of
Like,
space. You have a lot of like space to actually put a design, and it's just quite nice because then it can be
yeah,
basically anything. But oh yeah, that would be super cool.
yeah. I
I don't even
actually
think
know.
anyone's doing that, are they?
I know a shaper here. Like, it's possible.
Sorry, what's a shaper?
Somebody who makes surfboards,
Oh, I
a
see.
surfboard
Right.
shaper, a sculptor, basically a surfboard sculptor.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, that would be really, really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, a few friends of mine. I know a lot of artist friends too who are kind of interested in that. So we'll see. I mean, there's always like the practical side of figuring out the numbers and quantity and then the marketing and the whole the other sides, but it's possible, and I think it'll happen, especially as there's just more and more investment coming into Bitcoin in the Bitcoin community and Bitcoin business.
Yeah, it's a good time to do it actually, like now that it seems like we're going back into a bull run because yeah, there'll be a lot more people wanting to invest in things and certainly purchase things. Have you considered, I keep asking people this who are doing stuff, but have you considered household items? Because I always think from the OPSEC perspective, it's kind of like, do you really want stuff? But having things around the house, I think is always really lovely. Obviously artwork.
Yeah.
But have you thought about doing anything like that as well? Like
Oh yeah.
cushions or
Yeah, yeah. I have. The
yeah.
one thing that I'm really picky about, like that's what I mean. I envision it as a lifestyle brand, right? So like you can beautify your beach house or if you're going on vacation or if you live a coastal life or whatever. So you could have a piece of it or you could decorate your whole house and have a wardrobe. You know what I mean? It's just like there's something for everybody, right?
Sorry, I'm just having these visions of like, there's, I don't know if you remember there was that famous person, but she had her entire house was done in Hello Kitty. So everything was
Yeah.
pink. I just
Yeah,
had this
everything can be
vision.
done in Bitcoin servers.
Somebody obsessed with Bitcoin would have like a whole Bitcoin themed house. That might be a bit much, but
Yeah, I don't know. That might be too much orange. I don't know. I actually
too
am trying to
funny.
get away from that and like, like I have blue. I mean, I use the symbol for sure. I use it, but I am like part of the brand is trying to be a little bit, how can I make it also kind of discreet and because I do want it to be sort of a transition for, say people who don't know about Bitcoin to maybe spark interest, without having to be like, I want them to be like enamored by it and then realize after like, oh, it's in Bitcoin, right? Like I want to start, it's like a way to get people interested.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Definitely, definitely. Wow. Um, it's interesting because there's quite a few female artists in the Bitcoin space. So a few of them I've met, been friendly with, or interviewed for the podcast. And I find it quite interesting that there's this kind of very strong intersection between Bitcoin and art. Do you have relationships with other women in the Bitcoin artist community? And what's that like if you do?
Oh yeah, I do. And it's really great. It's really supportive and it's definitely given me courage and helped support me to keep going forward and has probably gotten me some opportunities because of their friendship and their support. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, my friend Flo, she collaborates with some artists though. So
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you've met her, but in Nashville recently, she had done a few pieces that were in collaboration with another artist. And it was actually quite fascinating how she did it because she was I mean, they must have spent a fortune on postal services, but they were sending the artwork between each other. So she would do a little piece and then she'd post it back, and then the other artist would do a little piece. And I thought that that was just such an incredible way of putting stuff together. Have you done any collaborations with other artists in the Bitcoin space, or would you?
Um, yeah, collaborations are phenomenal and I do love them. I've done some with other artists. However, I haven't done any yet with any Bitcoin artists. However, if you're listening to this, Bitcoin artist friends, I am open to a collaboration and would love to do that. So at some point it would. That's so cool that she did that because I actually was in Nashville too. I had a piece, but however, I didn't connect with her then, although we've
Oh.
connected in, Twitter
Oh,
land.
so you were in the gallery in the conference.
Yeah, I
Oh,
was.
nice. Nice.
Yeah. Um, so and that piece got picked up to be put in the museum. So it's in the Bitcoin Art Museum now.
Where is the Bitcoin Art Museum?
It's at headquarters Nashville, the Bitcoin magazine headquarters. Yeah.
Oh, I see. What is that? Does Bitcoin Magazine have an actual art gallery then?
Yeah, they do now. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
Tommy,
realize that.
he's been like integral in making that happen.
Oh, I see.
And
So
so
it's
I
like a
think,
physical space, like a physical
yeah,
gallery that you can go and visit. Oh, that's incredible. Wow.
yeah. And there's another space too kind of starting to happen in Denver.
Huh.
So who knows? We may have like all these little, I think there's another one too in Europe somewhere. So, or London. So I think people are starting to actually like create collections and almost, like little museums of Bitcoin art.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really incredible, actually. I didn't realize that. I mean, I don't have any plans to go to Nashville anytime soon, but if I do go, I'll definitely pop in and see it then. That's really
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
So
really great. What are your
so
thoughts about women in Bitcoin then? Because do you see, like in the artist community, do you see a decent amount of women in this space? Like, what's your sense of women in the Bitcoin ecosystem in general? Because for me, I initially thought that there weren't that many women in Bitcoin, and then I realized there are lots. They just don't go on podcasts very much or talk about what they're doing. Like they don't
yeah.
tend to have a very public presence compared to the men. I mean, sort of relatively speaking. But I'm always curious what other people's perspective is. Like, how do you kind of see it?
Yeah, I actually think I don't know, maybe there's a little, it's a little less. I I think there's a lot of women in it. I think that like you said, it's probably just sometimes our nature not to be so out there and maybe we're not getting as much press or getting as much, but I think we're out there. I mean, I'm amazed. Like there seems to be quite a few of us, which is great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of been my impression because I never run out of people to interview, and I'm like, oh, there's way more women in this space than I was kind of led to believe, I guess, when
Yeah.
I first got interested in Bitcoin, and I'm kind of like, wow, I think you're recording number 80, I think that I've done. So I've done like 80
Oh, cool.
interviews in like the last year and a bit. Actually,
Amazing.
no, it's nearly 2 years, actually. No. But so I mean, there's a ton of women out there that I'm not running out of people to talk to, but I'm always kind of surprised at how the perspective is that there aren't, or the perception rather is that there aren't as many.
Yeah, I don't know. That tends, I think that's something sort of like the old financial paradigm or like the old paradigm. That's one of the things, right, with Bitcoin. It's like we tend to take what we already know and put it onto new things instead of really letting, like really just being open to the new thing and how to and experiment and discover how we're going to work with it. We always are like, oh, great. It's like even now, it's like Bitcoin. Oh, we have to make this a financial tool like this, and they've got all these byproducts and financial byproducts. I mean, whatever. But I'm just saying, I think this is just a tool. We can make whatever with it. And so, I mean, I think it's very empowering. So I'm not surprised that there's a lot of women in it, right? Because it's really, it's for everyone. Bitcoin's for everyone.
Where do you see, like, I guess being a creative person, then you probably have an ability to imagine things that are outside of the regular paradigm much better than your average person. Like, where do you actually imagine Bitcoin will be? Like, what do you think a Bitcoin world will look like in, say, a decade or two? Do you ever think about how that might be?
Well, that's a good question. A little bit. I mean, everybody sees it, can see it differently and translate it differently. I mean, I see this as a tool for our emancipation, right? To create systems and to create um, connections
And
that
what
are
would that
actually
look like?
actually creating abundance. Well, I mean, I kind of see it now already, right? Like there's all these small little, developing lightning, developing like all these different labs. I mean, now there's like ordinals, there's all these different little things, and we're becoming these little ecosystems, right? Um, in fact, like I was just down in El Salvador and I literally use Bitcoin probably 80% of the time. Like I even got the visa into the country by using Bitcoin. So it's creating these circular economies, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect right away. It's going to take time. And yeah, there's still things that we're working out. However, like I mean, it is really possible to live in a Bitcoin world where everything is being exchanged for, Bitcoin. So value to value, or you want a coffee, you want
And
clothes.
how does that look different to you than the fiat world?
For me, it's like a different foundation. It's a different base. I mean, we're kind of just, I was just born and I had a number stuck and attached to me. I'm considered, it's basically a slave system, to put it, just to make it simple. It's basically, you're kind of just born into slavery, um, to become some sort of cog in a wheel, um, to benefit the very few. Whereas I feel like Bitcoin's very like neutral. It's not, you know what I mean? It's what you make it. So you have the infinite possibilities with it. You can develop it, you can use the tech, you can use it as a foundation of abundance. You can, you know what I mean? I think there's so many ways, um, that it can be this pillar, or fight, of honest money or honest transactions that, um, it doesn't have emotions. It doesn't have evil or good. It just is. It's just working. So it's sort of what we put on it and how we choose to use it.
And so do you imagine, because I mean, given it's an open source and it's a commons and anybody can use it, people can use it in good ways, people can use it in bad ways, just as,
Yeah.
you can use a car to rob a bank or you can go use a car to take somebody to hospital. Like, what do you imagine a world will look like then as people start to adopt Bitcoin more? Because we're going to get sort of good actors and bad actors in the way that we do in with any other technology. Like, how do you see that evolving?
Well, I mean, I do believe in the benevolence of the world, and nature, the nature, as we nurture more and more benevolence and more of the positive aspects. I think that that will outweigh the negative aspects.
Why do you think that?
Well, I mean, personally, just from my own experience, like going to a Bitcoin event, I'm always amazed at the people that I meet and how everybody is continually leveling up and learning and growing, and um it kind of makes you want to become better or greater. And, it sort of forces you to take responsibility for yourself and for your finances. I think a lot of the bad energy may not even get to Bitcoin in time because of like the forces behind it, and because of the sort of trajectory that it's on.
And what do you think is needed really to kind of keep the momentum up of Bitcoin adoption? Like, what do you think is actually going to drive that for society in general?
Well, I mean, I believe that we also need to use it. I know that a lot of people are just like something to hang on to, and it's an asset. Yes, and also we need to use it, and we need to have these circular economies, and we need to be exchanging it for goods and services, and um, build an economy, an alternative economy. I mean, I feel like that's really important.
Yeah, that makes sense. What does because it's interesting. I mean, obviously you've spent time in El Salvador, so you've seen what it's like to operate in a on a Bitcoin standard. How does that compare with Mexico?
Well, Where I am, it hasn't been adopted quite as well. I mean, there is growing adoption here for sure. There is, an ATM not too far away, so like it's
Hmm.
starting to people are starting to tap in.
I'm curious though. I mean, is it like, does your average Mexican understand Bitcoin? Are they interested in it? Do they see value? Because I feel like there are a lot of the same issues that there are or that there were in El Salvador, for example, in Mexico. And it seems to me that there's quite a good use case for using Bitcoin, but I haven't had the impression that it's widely used there. I'm just curious as to like how the culture sort of receives it or how it's viewed as an asset or as a means of exchange.
Yeah, it's not widely accepted here like it is. I mean, even in El Salvador, there's still a lot of people who don't really know about it. However, I feel like they've heard it, so they're more open to learning about it. Whereas here, it's it's been a challenge to try to get some of my Mexican friends to use it. It's like you really have to. I mean, this is the thing though too. It's like when you're ready, you're ready.
Mm, yeah.
It's like you can't force it.
I was going to say, do you try and orange pill people or do you just kind of
I
see if they
do.
ask about
Like a
using?
lot of the places that I go to regularly, like, oh, it'd be great if you could accept Bitcoin. Let's set you up. But
And
they're,
what's the response?
it's just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, we'll do that. But it's like they're busy, so they go do something else or whatever. The tipping, sometimes you can tip people too. Like, hey, set up like some sort of lightning wallet and then, set that up and I'll give you a tip on it. Some people have done that. And I mean, there is a community here for sure.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you have regular Bitcoin meetups that you go to?
Uh, there are some, yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
super
There's a few
cool.
people. Like, there's been some like crypto, like Bitcoin meetups that kind of come and go. I actually would like to tap more into like the local Bitcoin because there's a barber in Puerto Vallarta that is a Bitcoin
Yeah.
only, like a local business.
Oh, wow.
But I
That's
can't get my
amazing.
hair cut there because I have too long hair. It's only for short hair. It's for men.
That's so funny. That's so sexist. It's
Well,
interesting because you talked a little bit about just to backtrack on about NFTs as well. What are your thoughts about ordinals? Because I interviewed somebody last week who is quite deep in the ordinal space. Do you
yeah.
see that as beneficial for your art? Is it useful for artists, and how do you see it being used?
I don't know. I mean, it's another tool. Yeah, I think it works really well for some people. I've dabbled. I mean, I kind of dabbled early on because I always wanted my art on Bitcoin. And I thought, like, wow, well, this is great. Now I can just totally be off of the other blockchains and go back to Bitcoin. And then actually, what's funny is that I got back into XCP, like one of the original, the first. So now I've actually done things on Counterparty on XCP.
What, sorry, what's that?
Um,
XCP?
Yeah, counterparty token. It was like one of the first protocols on Bitcoin where you could do a token.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, they a lot of like they're known for like the Pepe. A lot of the Pepe art was
Oh, I see. So it's a token, but what is it linked to the Bitcoin blockchain or is it an
yes, it's
altcoin?
all yeah, it's a protocol on top. It's like the first layer too.
Oh, okay. And how does that work for
I'm
artwork
not
then? Are
super
you
technical,
selling?
but I just yeah. Huh?
How does
But
that
it's
work for artwork then? Are you selling tokens that are linked to a specific piece of digital art?
um yes, sometimes I mean, yeah, it's like a digital, yeah, it's like you're tokenizing your digital art.
So almost like an NFT where it says like this is a piece of artwork, it's linked to this
Yes.
token. If you have this token, you own this piece of digital
Yes.
art.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
And how does that work in contrast to ordinals then? I mean, which do you prefer, which do you use, or what's the reason for using one over the other?
I mean, from my understanding, ordinals is actually like within the SAT, within So like it's actually on chain. So you're actually taking up space on chain, whereas I might get myself in trouble. I'm not like the most technical, but and then for I feel like XCP is more of a like it's also on the blockchain, but it's not taking up space on the blockchain. It's like the transaction is on the blockchain.
And so where does the art actually live within XCP?
Yeah, well, it lives on like in a file, like in a IPFS or Arweave. It lives
Oh, I
in
see. So it
some
works
sort
like
of,
an NFT, then you have to point to the
yeah, it
location.
works like an NFT. Yeah.
Oh, I
You have to
see.
upload your information. Whereas with an ordinal, it's actually
Mhm.
like etched onto like within in the SAT.
Yeah. What's the benefit for artists then in having these things linked? I mean, is it because you can sell your art to a sort of non-physical audience, as in somebody doesn't have to purchase a piece of art directly, or what's the benefit for the artistic community?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question. I often ask that. Um, I think, it's a whole new marketplace, digital art, right? And now they have these screens. So it actually, you could have a whole museum on your phone screen, or
Mm,
you could have a whole museum just on your screen at home, right? So I don't know, it makes um, art more accessible, I think. And then there's a lot of communities created around them. And it's a whole new market. It's a different market that wasn't available before blockchain technology. So, I mean, I think there's that, I think it's really valid and useful for some people. I
have
mean,
you
I still
found that a
sort of
good way
question.
to sell your art? Has it been kind of has it been effective?
Um, yeah, I mean, I've sold a little kind of everywhere. I probably still believe in physical art more than anything. It might be because of like my age or my, but I mean, I've tried. I still think that the physical, like, there's just something about like physical goods and the value and the energy or the intention and soul that is like in it and that travels with it. Um, I mean, I love digital art too, and I do, I do explore that, and I do have digital pieces. However, I really love the tangible. In fact, that's part of the reason too I make clothes. It's just for that like wearable art, like it's actually tangible. There's like this
Mm.
because we can choose what we wear. It's an expression of expression of our soul in some ways, an expression of who we are or who we think we could be or who we want to be. And I think so I'm really kind of coming back even deeper into tangible and physical goods.
That's really interesting. Is your clothing, you said, is it that drop shipped or is it somebody in Mexico that's making it for you?
I actually right now it's drop shipped from England.
Oh, right. Huh.
Yeah, I found a place that
Of
that
all
is,
random places.
I know I've already, well, so here's the thing. The one thing that I wanted to do too was I want to use like good quality natural fibers, right? Like to me, it might be pricier, however, it's worth it because I think it's valuable what you're going to wear, what you're going to put on your skin. You want it to be breathable, especially for beachwear and the climate that I'm dealing with. So, like, I want 100% cotton, like linen, silk. I really would like to look too into hemp and like bamboo fabrics. So I'm kind of still doing R&D in that area. And then I can get things manufactured here. However, I have to kind of work on some of the logistics. I mean,
Mm.
swimwear and certain things you can't do natural fiber. However, what I think it's really important. like quality and natural fabrics. Like I think that is something that we should take more seriously. Plus, I think slow fashion, I mean, as a Bitcoiner, I think it's really important to stand strong in our values. And I don't want to have mass produced slave labor clothes anymore, right? Like I want to have something that has meaning and that proof of work, people put in their proof of work and they like hopefully will get paid in Bitcoin for it eventually, right? Like eventually I want it to be full circle. However, for now, I want it to be at least, you know, fair wage and responsible. So that's really the angle that I'm coming from. So I could easily just shoot off a bunch of other clothes. And I think that's good too. I mean, not everybody wants that or can afford that, so that's fine. But for me, like if I'm gonna I always want to make something that I would wear or that that would mean something to me. So like I want to choose, I'd rather save up and spend something on quality that I can use over again and take care of than just buy a bunch of cheap clothes. That
Yeah. I think that that's actually great. It's really nice as well to see like people doing Bitcoin fashion and also being interested in like the ethics of how it's done. Um Naomi, it's been such a pleasure chatting to you, and I love like talking to artists. It's just fascinating to hear what you guys are doing. You did send me all your links, so I will include them in the show notes. But in
yeah.
case anybody is just listening, could you just run through the main places where you would like to direct people? So any kind of handles you would like to send them to, or the URL for your shop, or anything like that that you think are the most important ones for them to check out.
Oh yeah, well, thank you so much. It's been so fun to talk to you. I wanted to like ask you a bunch of questions, but it was just like the time flew by so fast. And yeah, you had great questions, by the way. You like really, you know what you're doing.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. My handle is SEA is medicine on like
All
on
one word.
Twitter. Yeah, all one word. C is medicine. Uh, and then my website is BTC, like, Bitcoin's ticker, BTC Aloha .shop. So that's probably the best place to send
Well,
people.
that's a great handle. And with Christmas coming up as well, it's like perfect timing for people to buy their gifts. And can people pay in Bitcoin and in fiat?
They can actually pay in Bitcoin.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Great. So if you're listening and you're looking to buy something for your loved one, check out Naomi's shop. And thank you so much, Naomi. This has been great. It was so lovely to meet you, and I'm so glad that Asa connected us. And hopefully I will, well, if I'm at any Bitcoin beach event somewhere in the world, I expect I will find you there.
Yes, well, I look forward to meeting you in person someday. I'm sure it will happen.